I am Iron Man's Pez dispenser. Let's talk about Iron Man. So the concept of Iron Man at its core is one of personal reinvention, building yourself into something better than you previously were. It's a continuous process. We're always working on that better suit of armor to meet the new challenges that arise. Technology is always advancing and people need to advance alongside with it. So Iron Man first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 39 back in 1963. It's written by Stan Lee and Larry Lieber and drawn by Don Heck. It's a 12-page origin story that the 2008 movie followed very faithfully, though it did update it and embellish it for modern times, and did so very extraordinarily well, I must say. Excellent movie. Fantastic. Still one of my favorites of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's look at some of the basic elements of that origin story. So you have a man who is wrongfully imprisoned. He's wasting away. He's eventually going to die there, it seems. But he befriends an older, wiser man. And he learns from that older, wiser man. And with that man's help, he's able to build himself into a better, stronger version of himself. And he does so right under the noses of his captors. Eventually, the older man must sacrifice himself so the younger man can effect his escape. Does that remind you of anything? Let's reach back to high school English. And yes, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Excellent book. You should read it as an adult. Now, it's not an exact parallel. Some key elements are inverted. For example, Edmond Dantes is purely innocent at the time of his wrongful imprisonment. Tony Stark, however, is far less pure at the start of his story. He's a much more established man who leads a privileged existence, though the movie depicts him as shallower and much more self-involved. In both, he's developed impressive weapons for the US Army that will aid in the current war, whether that's in Vietnam or the Middle East. And while in that foreign country, the enemy mortally wounds and captures him. In confronting death, Tony Stark has an opportunity to grow stronger, but he can't do it without the aid of a new mentor figure, Dr. Yinsen. So the movie uses the character much better, though of course the comic was only 12 pages, so only so much they could do. But in the movie in particular, Dr. Yinsen is able to teach Tony, sort of like how the Ave Faria was able to teach Edmond Dantes. But in both the comic and the movie, Yinsen gives up his life so Tony Stark can continue with his. It's a timeless theme. The old teaches the young, and the young supplants the old. Woven into the very fabric of our reality. In the case of Dantes, his metamorphosis is corrupted by a thirst for vengeance, and he detaches from his humanity, especially after the death of his mentor and his only friend he had in prison for all those many years. In Tony Stark's case, his armor physically separates him from humanity, especially at first, but it also serves as a cocoon in which he learns how to be a better man and a better person. Though in that first comic book story, the metamorphosis is not yet complete. So Tony Stark's initial metamorphosis is into something fearsome and unrecognizable and inhuman. It's this big, gray, ugly, hulking suit of armor, but it's really just a starting point. It does the job of allowing him to get out of that prison, so he can continue on with his life. The Iron Man series, both the comic books and the movies, it's a never-ending process of improving that armor. Always building, always fine-tuning, always tinkering, always reaching for that next stage of development, that next stage of evolution. Iron Man is always advancing. But initially, without that big, ugly, gray, clunky suit of armor, Tony Stark would die. It's necessary for his survival. Just as Edmond Dantes would have wasted away in that prison without his metaphorical armor of knowledge and then later the wealth he acquires. In both cases, Tony Stark and Edmond Dantes need to build themselves into something better or they're going to die. It's sort of like how the Iron Man origin story itself needed to rebuild itself for 2008 and update it and improve it for a modern audience, while still, of course, keeping the previous generation's excellent foundation intact. So both stories, then, are telling us to keep growing, keep evolving, keep learning, or you'll waste away and perish. So on that happy note, thank you for watching, and really, you should read this book again. Look at these great words.